Morning everybody, Bear with BearIndependent.com. Just got done rucking, and while I was rucking, I was thinking about a back and forth conversation I've been having on Patreon with Needham from the Freedom Declassified podcast. And part of that conversation was, hey Bear, I'm experiencing some interferences in between my war belt and my rucksack. Any suggestions? Yes. 3. And then a couple of observations. First, method A, which I explained to Needham, is what I do, which is, and it doesn't look like it, but my ruck is fairly high on my back. It could be a little bit higher, but because of the geometry of my shoulders and the weight and the fact that I've had it on for 35 minutes now, that's where it's sitting. But my waist belt is at my belly button. See, it's up here. And my belt is down here. So that creates room for the waist belt at my belly button and my war belt, or in this case, my EDC, on my belt line, on my trousers. So that's one way you eliminate that issue, is by running your waist belt at your belly button and your war belt at your waist. That's method A. Method B is a 100-pound Anatolian puppy just came running through here at 35 miles an hour. That was cool. Method B is you run your war belt long on an H harness, suspenders, whatever, and it sits down around your ass, kinda. And then your rucksack sits lower, and so the waist belt on the rucksack is actually on your waist. In this case, it would be down here, and your war belt would be down here. It's another method that works, and before you knock it, I know a lot of guys that do that, and they have more credentials than both of us. So that's method B. So the first is, A is run everything high. High rucksack, high waist belt, high war belt. The second method, B, is run everything a little bit lower. Low war belt around your ass, which means the waist belt from your rucksack is around your waist and your ruck's sitting a little bit lower. Whichever you prefer. Which brings us to C. Go use your stuff, because when you use your stuff, you're gonna learn what actually works for you. And the reason it's important to know about interferences is because, I got a pack back here, right? This pack right now is running 45 pounds, I think, as of this morning. It was 45 yesterday, and I haven't changed it, so we'll call it 45. 7.5 pound rifle. Yes, there's a round chambered, because homestead. You don't have your dust cover closed. You're welcome, Nazi. I'm gonna tactically complain from my basement armchair. Got it. Here's the deal. C, you have to go use your stuff, because you will find interferences for you and your gear. For example, if your pistol sits right at 3 o'clock OWB, that's one thing, but if it sits more like 3:30, like mine does, that puts the butt of the gun, about 5 o'clock. Well, what's at 5 o'clock? The bottom of my rucksack, okay? So that's gonna change the way that I draw this pistol, okay? Changes the way I reholster this pistol. And that's just my EDC, Glock 21C, and my rucksack. You start adding in all these other components, things get tricky. For example, this shoulder strap is where? Right in the pocket. The pocket that what? That the buttstock of our rifle goes into. So what I've found when I have this rucksack on is that I have to get a little bit more Israeli when I shoulder a rifle. So rather than putting the gun in the pocket, I move it closer to my center line. So rather than it being here, where I can't actually get purchase on this because this is happening, I move it here. See? Inside the shoulder strap. I will be right there, my love. She's looking at me like, what are you doing? Are you tugging at the internet again? you just want to play with your camo stuff, go raise chickens for meat. Okay, so when I have the rucksack on, and having a little bit of play in your sling is a good thing, right? You don't, about yay far is where I run it, like this. And then this is just a simple quick sling from Sojourn Gear. So if I need to tighten it up, I can. But the point being here that I run it closer to my center line when I have my rucksack on, here. So when I'm here, this is gonna change my sight picture, right? Now I can see y'all, but how I acquire this sight picture is different, slightly, but it's different than how I would acquire that sight picture if I had this gun in the pocket. But I don't put it in the pocket when I have my ruck on, because that happens. That makes it really hard to acquire a sight picture, okay? So just little things, doing this on center line, okay? Now, the other thing I found with this too is while walking in, putting rounds on a target if you have to, I've actually found being closer to my center line to be more stable, period. Shooting while moving, which is the Israeli way, and I'm not a fan of Israeli carry, which, I mean, I'm not a fan of Israeli carry, meaning carrying on an empty chamber and then, you know, go to work. No thanks, I'm not into that. But this does work fairly well for me when I employ it properly. And I know when to employ it properly because I put my stuff on and I go use it. I had this ruck 4-ish years. This rucksack probably has more miles on it than most people's running shoes do. And I've learned how to carry it, how I like it loaded, where does it ride, what interferences do I have with my war belt, so forth and so on. And then add into this plate carrier or chest rig or sleeping kit, or it's winter and now your pack weighs 60 pounds, not 45, or whatever, and it all changes. And so method A, run it high. Your pack waist belt goes at your belly button, your war belt goes at your trouser waistline. Method B, run it low, war belt around your ass and waist belt around your waist. Method C, do it yourself and learn what actually works, which is probably going to be some variation of those two methods for you based upon where all your kit lives on your body, right? And here's a whole nother thing. Can you do a push-up, multiple push-ups with your rucksack on? If you had to, see in the basic fighting stance, right? Like if we're doing this, right? Athletic stance, feet shoulder width apart. Dominant leg for me is dropped back half a step. I'm leaned in. This is my fighting stance. We can punch. If we had to fight with knives, we could fight with knives. If we had to fight with pistols, it's the same stance for pistols. If we have to fight with rifles, it's the same stance for rifles. Have you done all that with your kit on? You should. And you should be unconcerned with looking like an idiot. Just go do it. Because the more you do it, the less you look like an idiot. You gotta learn, right? You gotta learn. Like I had my son out here at the range the other day shooting that little Taurus 9mm. And when we started, he was having a hard time consistently hitting a paper plate at 5 yards. When we finished, he was shooting clean the El Prez drill from 5 with that little 9 in 90 minutes. But when he first started, he was pretty disheartened that he wasn't just rocking it right out of the gate. Practice makes perfect. But after 90 minutes of actual instruction, actual training, working on fundamentals, he was rocking that El Prez. Ba-ba, 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 ba-ba. It's great. But you got to use your stuff is the point, right? And so I would encourage you to go use your stuff. If you live in the suburbs, find a patch of woods where you can walk around, or a park or whatever. Run your rucksack. You can put a cover over the rucksack, bright orange or woodland or whatever, so that it looks less tactical, so that all the soccer moms aren't peeing in their lacy panties when you come walking by. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna call the SWAT team. And in the suburbs, you probably don't want to carry one of these around, but what you can do is get a pressure treated 4x4, cut it in half, and carry that, because it's roughly the same weight, it's roughly the same length, and the difference is when you're hiking or you're running, you've got this going. When you're rucking with the rifle, you don't, because your hands, at least one of them, should be on your weapons at all times. Usually what I do is I'm holding this here, and I've got this hand free or just lightly resting here. Because, you know, if a velociraptor runs out of yon woods, we need to be ready to engage. But it's just good practice to have your hands on your weapons. Otherwise, why are you carrying a weapon? But there's a difference when you're rucking with having your hands free. I feel like this is jazzercise, versus having your hands on your weapon. And you do get into a little bit of this motion, or at least I do sometimes. And I usually try and shut that down, because when I do, I can feel my quads are working harder and my core's tightening up, which is good, because the whole reason I'm doing this in the first place is exercise. And it gives me the opportunity to use my gear and learn from using it daily while exercising. So understanding that I'm blessed with this where a lot of people aren't, you can still do this in your neighborhood. Just maybe get a less tactical pack or get a pack cover. They're like 20, 25 bucks, 40 bucks for the super high speed ones. They're not terribly expensive. Get a pack cover and carry a 4x4 that's been cut in half, pressure treated, because they weigh more. And that will build the same mechanics. But I prefer that you figure out option C. Yeah, and I work for a living. I prefer that you engage in option C, whatever works for you, which you have discovered from doing the things, much more than you take my word on method A or take my word on method B. But that's a good place to start. A, run it high, B, run it low. But the simple fact of the matter is, two things cannot occupy the same place at the same time. And if you're thinking that you're a smarty pants and you're gonna short circuit the system by using your waist belt on your pack as a gun belt, I tried that once. It was kind of chafy, it didn't stay put, and it doesn't hug my waist the way I would like it to, so I had lots of mass flopping around all over the place, and I was like, this sucks. Next. So it might work for you, it did not work for me, and that's not what that waist belt on your ruck is designed to do anyway. It's supposed to help distribute the load from your shoulders to your hips so that you can carry this for a much longer period of time without dying or needing to go see a spinal specialist. So anyway, guys and girls, go do the things. I hope this was a little bit of a blessing, or at the very least some entertainment for you, and some encouragement to go put your kid on wherever you live, whether it's, you know, the nowhere of Montana or the edge of the suburbs. Go do the things, and you will learn by doing. Shalom, y'all.